Welcome to the Journals of the Information Entrepreneur with Leadership Through Data. I'm your host, Jacqueline Stockwell. Each week, I'll be talking to information leaders across the world about topics from information management, AI, privacy, data protection, public speaking, and other essential skills. I call this podcast the Voices of Influence. My goal is to empower and inspire information leaders to step out of their comfort zones, be bold, be brave, and be beautiful. Hope you enjoy the show.
I'm super excited to be here today with Tori Miller, a friend, also partner, to come onto the podcast to have the long discussion that we wanted to have about what we should be called as information leaders. First of all, Tori, before we start, let me ask you to introduce yourself and a fact about yourself that nobody knows or something that just says who you are.
Oh my, secrets will be revealed on this podcast. My name is Tori Miller. I'm the president and CEO of the Association for Intelligent Information Management. I'll tell you a little bit about AIIM. We were founded in 1944, and we represent the managers of unstructured and semi-structured data. So we serve folks who are working in typically highly regulated industries, and they're very concerned with all of that, we'll call it garbage data outside of tidy databases, whether it's records or documents or contracts or engineering schematics. That's the stuff that we live and breathe. We also serve solution providers in the space, and what we're really focused on is how you manage information with AI and automation. So we always like to talk about technology, and we were founded by microfiche executives. So our MO has always been, how do we look at unstructured data and semi-structured data with technology, and to leverage it, to enhance it, and to just make it better and more compliant and govern better. For myself, I am previously a chief information officer, so I'm a techie at heart. And a fact about me that not many people know, I'm a little loath to say this because I don't want to invite gifts, but I really like squirrels, and I'm always hesitant to say that I like squirrels because inevitably people hear that and they're like, I will send her a squirrel t-shirt. Like, please don't send me squirrel t-shirts. But I really do like squirrels. They are abundant here in the US, and we just in this area in recent years started getting black squirrels, which are so adorable. So we have gray squirrels and black squirrels, and they're super cute. They're super industrious. They're a little aggressive, especially in the cities, but I love them. I think they speak to my soul.
Yeah, I agree. And we were talking earlier about accents, so when you said squirrels, I had to keep you talking to actually work out if you were talking about a squirrel, the same squirrel that I was thinking about, the squirrel that was in my garden, just because your accent. So it's totally, absolutely fine. I love squirrels.
How do you say it?
I call it a squirrel.
Squirrel.
Squirrel. You but whether that's right or not.
That's right, syllables.
But yeah, again, I'm dyslexic and can't say most things, but yes.
Which our mutual friend Alyssa Blackburn and I have done a presentation before on cultural differences and competency when it comes to like information. And this is like a small micro case of trouble you might get into with metadata or taxonomy because you and I both pronounce the word differently. And so you might spell it differently if you hear me saying it. And then all of a sudden we have a data mismatch. See, there's information management lessons everywhere. I can be such a geek about this.
100%, and you say aluminum foil, and we say tin foil.
Well, I don't even aluminum. Oh yeah. You say aluminium, right? Aluminium.
Is that what you call tin foil? We call it.
No,
foil.
I call it aluminum foil.
That's what we call it, tin foil.
Yeah, aluminum foil, tin foil. Yeah.
Oh no, that's smashing. So let's just this is great conversation to start. One of the things where we've been working together over the last couple of years, we've been having a long conversation about what we should be called. So records managers, information leaders, and it'd be nice to have this conversation on recording, so we've been waiting for a while. So do you want to kind of kick us off as to your thoughts around how the conversation started?
Yeah, so I think it started a couple years ago where there was sort of ad hoc observations about our space that we didn't have a lot of shared job titles, we didn't have a lot of centralized, succinct responsibility lists. Because if you talk to an information manager at, say, a government agency in the United States and then talk to another information manager in London and in the UK, they could be both working for a finance or tax agencies and have very different jobs. One might be very involved in AI implementation, while the other might be focused on digitizing mountains of paper. And so we were finding with disparate job descriptions, disparate roles and responsibilities and job titles, there didn't seem to be a word, a name, a label that we could easily apply to everyone. And then we proved this when we did some research this last year, where we actually asked people about their job responsibilities, their titles, and what came out of that research is we confirmed that hunch, right? So the job titles aren't normalized. They're all over the place, to the point where like the traditional titles like information governance manager, information manager, records manager were still only like 20% of the titles. It was such a small amount. You would think it would be so much bigger. So the titles are all over the place. And then the responsibilities were everywhere. Some people were doing data privacy. Some people were doing information security. Some people were still doing traditional archive record management with paper. And I would talk to folks and interview them, and they were telling me it's not just that we're now being focused on data privacy, for instance. It's actually that we're being split in many, many, many different directions. So on one day, I'm taking control of paper archives, and then the next day I'm being tasked with training in Microsoft Teams and how to get my organization involved in Teams. And then the next day I'm having to implement AI. You and others and I have started having this conversation about, well, what are we? Like, what do we call ourselves? We're having sort of a personality crisis, right? And so we landed on this term information leaders last year, which I think really encompasses not just the breadth of the responsibilities that the folks who are dealing with unstructured and semi-structured data now manage, but also more importantly reflects the seniority of people. Because the same body of research that we did, our state of the practice report, did prove out that we are not talking about entry-level folks. Most of our respondents were mid-level managers or above. A lot of them had responsibility for managing people and teams. A lot of them were significant decision makers when it comes to purchasing and procuring technologies. So they may not be the primary decision maker, but odds are they are at the table and making decisions. They're higher paid than we thought they were. These are what that data proved to me, and I think the community, is that we're not talking about this stereotypical idea of, the entry-level records manager who's in the basement shuffling boxes around. Like that doesn't exist anymore. We're talking about very dynamic professionals that are grappling with a broad range of tasks. They have significant influence in their organization, especially in the AI era. And I think we need a new title to kind of reflect that. And so information leaders felt very appropriate in that context.
Yeah, agreed. And that's something we've adapted as well, because we've got the information leader flower. We were having the whole concept from a business that people were saying, I need records management, knowledge management, privacy, now I need soft skills, communication, public speaking. And then it's just like, well, where do people start? So we kind of created the information leader flower that encompasses all of that and AI, and then allows to have a title that covers everything that is information based, really. And I love that title because we are leaders of information. Whether we have a team or not, we're leading information strategies within businesses, within organisations. So that kind of is a real good fluid way.
What I really liked about the flower that you all developed is, from AIIM's lens, we're very focused on the technical aspects of information management, right? So we're much more focused on are they doing information security, data privacy, information governance? But I like that your flower took into account the second half of that phrase. If we're focused on information, you guys, I think, went deeper into what does it mean to be a leader? If you're managing and you have this technical responsibility, what skills and characteristics do you need to acquire and refine to be a competent and successful information leader?
Yeah, and it's exactly how you put it so beautifully earlier. We're not records managers in libraries anymore with physical records. We're teams one day, can't think of the other things that you just said on the podcast, but it's all those different things that you have to think about. And then you've got all the soft skills, or essential skills, I call them. They're not soft, they're essential skills.
Not you can pay me for this advertisement for your book later, but I was lucky enough to edit your book for you, and I really like that you broke down those skills that I think people really will need, especially going forward. I mean, if we're being asked more frequently to be involved in not just information management system implementations, but AI implementations, you're going to need to know how to lead change management. You're going to need to understand how to communicate and present and be a good public speaker. You're going to need to understand project management and business analysis. So I think that the irony to me is while we're fully embracing AI and we're constantly finding ways to use AI to automate workflow processes and businesses and enterprise at a large scale, the skills that information leaders are going to need to really work on in the next few years aren't necessarily technical. They're those soft skills that you talk about in your book.
Yeah, 100%. And I think they're the ones that will really drive information management, all the criteria and the roles that we cover in the organisation, but also into the wider community. Because I think if we, as information leaders, had a higher voice and a better voice, we'd be able to push priorities a lot quicker and a lot faster into the wider to say, actually, information is gold.
Do you feel like, I think my other theory is that another reason to work on those skills is that those skills happen to not be easily augmented or replicable by AI. And I think it's important for us to identify where we can be more humans in the AI era. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that, 100%. I do agree with that. Because they're the things that that comes from a person. They come from a people. Change management is people-focused. Project management, people-focused. So yes, there's systems and technology behind us. Public speaking, business cases, people-focused. You've got to get people to buy in. You've got to get people to influence, to get them to drive the change forward, to get the technology, to get the training budgets, to get all those things. It's fundamentally, for me, it comes down to the actual person. And if the person is overwhelmed, underpaid, run off their feet, they're not going to have that drive and that passion and that empowerment to be able to do the tasks that the organisations are asking them to do.
When you think of information, sorry, it's like I'm turning into the interviewer, but I'm like, Jackie. But I've been kind of plagued by this question, so I'm going to plague you with it too. When you think about the job description of an information leader, like this sort of thing that we're imagining and talking about, of their role, of their responsibilities in that job description, what is going to be replaced by AI, say like 5 years from now, and what isn't, and how do we approach that? If we know certain responsibilities are going to be replaced by AI, do we focus more on the things that won't be replaced by AI, or do we pivot to also understand how to, better manage AI that's augmenting or replacing those responsibilities? What do you think? Like, what's going to happen to us?
Oh, well, I'm just going to go into my sort of back to the future and jump in my time machine and work for it. But I would say people are still going to be around and focus on the people aspect of it. I mean, you look how quick technology changes. I mean, Copilot came in, you look how that kind of took over the world, ChatGPT and the deep sea, is it deep sea? Those types of things come in and they're there for, the first drafts. But then you still need a human touch on it. It's Copilot, not autopilot. So I think focusing on sort of the change management aspects, the people, the succession planning, the building your own profile, having the confidence to be able to deliver, build your strategies and focus on those key aspects and then work with the technology.
What's the career path to that point, though? Because you're basically painting this picture of someone they're the human in the loop, right? Like they're doing human oversight for a lot of AI and automation. But if you're just graduating university, how do you get to that point where you're the human oversight for like multiple AI agents, multiple AI-enabled processes?
Well, I'd say that comes down to leadership and delegation, really. You have to have sort of multiple hats and know everything. And plug for the new Empower program, because it's a 12-month development program that will give all those key components for people coming out of university to have those knowledge, everything that an information leader would need to know. And then they can choose the pathway, or they can oversee the other pathways and have people underneath them.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that answer too, because now the state of affairs, and this has been the case for decades, is that if you want to get into the information management field, you start probably an entry-level position where you're learning hands-on the mechanics of managing data and managing records, right? So what I'm hearing you say, though, is that in the future, the mechanics, those sort of robotic tasks like manually tagging documents, for instance, that's probably not going to be something we do in the future. So if that doesn't exist as an entry level task, then I think you're probably right. What it means is that you graduate university, you're going to need to pursue some sort of training to understand the basics and the fundamental principles of information management in order to get to that human in the loop oversight role. Because you can't, my hypothesis is that you can't manage AI agents and people and information management programs without at least understanding the fundamentals. And so
agree.
If you don't have the hands-on opportunity to learn those fundamentals, you probably have to default to training, mentorship.
Yeah, and it's well, exactly, and it's a leadership program for information leaders, our Empower program. But I think having a lot of conversations with a lot of organisations, they've just done one thing in silo. So if you look at a lot of the educational pieces out there for information leaders, everything's in silo. Whereas what we've tried to do is pull one together to build a whole framework and push it for a 12-month that incorporates everything that an information leader would need to know within that frame, within that time frame. So it allows the new professionals, and that's one of my things that I want to be doing over the next couple of years, is getting new people into our profession through our framework, just because I think there's real value in giving them an overarching of everything that they would need to, the multiple hats is what we commonly say with all the roles and responsibilities that we have. And then you set them off in success. You don't set them off at the start and then they have to learn it as they go on. You give them the bigger picture, encourage them through the program.
So how do you
That's
get a
my
university
future
student?
vision.
It's a beautiful vision. I'm just kind of curious, how do you get a university student excited about being an information leader?
Because they get empowered. Do you like the plug there?
Yeah. Nameless. Nameless, Jackie.
I thought it was a great question. Can come with a bit of point. I think it's about having, it goes back to the point that we have responsibility in our industry to make people understand the importance of information management. I'm going to call it information management for the purpose of this. So that's like every time we present on stage, every time we present in a webinar, we have to come with enthusiasm, with drive, with passion for what we do. And that enthusiasm will go and seed itself in others and then think, oh yeah, great, that looks like a great profession to be in. If we're not doing anything as information leaders and we're kind of, well, the only way I can describe it is, I'm an information leader and I look after information and data, you're not going to kind of get anyone empowered or enthusiastic with that. And that's kind of my drive and my vision, is to ensure that I can empower others to empower other people. Because once you empower one, it's like one happy person tells another happy person, tells another happy person. Same with empowerment, it kind of goes down the line. I don't know why I'm doing all hand movements. But yeah, that's what I think. And I strongly believe that comes from people, and that's us as information leaders, and that's our responsibility to get more and more people involved, and for training and professional organisations such as yourself to work with universities and then say this is a good thing. And we've been speaking to some in the UK and they love the programme. Is that the way forward? Is it a practical based training rather than a theoretical educational piece for, I don't know, I'm not in my time machine yet, but that's what I think.
Well, I think you're right too. I like the approach of getting it out of theory and talking about practically, like, here is the positive impact that you would have on society, on business, on your peers, your colleagues. I think the other thing that we can focus on as experienced information leaders is connecting it to the outcome. So AI is such a good example, and there's so many good analogies around information management's relationship to AI. I'll use the analogy of a garden. So if AI is the flower seeds, right, that you plant in the soil, information management is like everything else, because AI can't function without data. So if we are the determinants of the quality of water, whether we're using, non-toxic, non-chemically ridden fertilizers, right? Like, we can determine the quality and the ethics and the responsibility of the data that goes into AI, and that has wide sweeping impacts. Whenever you hear about like algorithmic bias, the root of algorithmic bias is data. When you have narrow data sets or data sets that were created by a small group of people with a singular mindset, you will get bad results from AI. You will get AI that is prejudiced, that makes bad decisions, that literally hurt people. So I feel like there's a really compelling story there about we as information leaders can control that pipeline. We can make sure that AI is responsibly implemented. We can make sure that AI teams and projects and systems have good quality, safe data that doesn't exploit people, that doesn't disadvantage and harm humans. And that to me is like personally inspiring. You know, if I like time travel 10 years in the past, I'd be like, yeah, I could get behind that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Tori, thank you so much for your time today. You did mention my book, and you are on the back page of it from reading through it. So please find that on Amazon, end of June date. If you want to know any more, connect with Tori via LinkedIn or myself. And thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you for listening to the Journals of the Information Entrepreneur with me, Jacqueline Stockwell. I hope you found this episode inspiring and helpful and have some takeaway tips that can be useful to you. If you liked this episode, please like, review and share it with your friends. Your support helps us reach more information leaders to stay inspired and listen to great content. Want to test out your strengths and weaknesses and measure it against our Empower framework? Please complete the scorecard. It's a great way to improve and evaluate your skills. You can find the scorecard at the end of the description of this podcast. Stay tuned for a new podcast every Thursday, and remember to be bold, be brave and be beautiful.